Good evening. This is the North Andover Select Board meeting, Monday, November 30th, 2020. And I'm going to read a statement pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people who may gather in one place. This meeting of the North Andover Board of Selectmen will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so on their televisions by tuning to Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 26, or online at www.northandovercam. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the North Andover, Town of North Andover website an audio or video recording, transcript, comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Let me call to order our meeting and have a roll call vote of our members, please.
Laura Baker,
Phil DiCollegiero here.
Dick, are you muted?
No, Richard
No.
Alford here. I thought I was waiting for Rosemary.
You know what? I was muted. Rosemary Smedili here. Sorry about that.
Hey, we're all good. All right. So our agenda, first item is public comment. And again, public comments can be submitted at www.northandoverma.gov/public comments. Do we have any comments that were submitted beforehand?
Mr. Chair, we do not have any public comment tonight.
Okay, all right, appreciate that. So let's just move to governmental reports, and we just have one, obviously very important, our update on COVID. So
Sure. That's going to be me tonight because our health director is on a well-deserved vacation. So this week when they announced it last Wednesday, because they didn't do it Thursday for Thanksgiving, we were yellow. We had 144 case count over the last 14-day period that they used to do the calculation, with an average daily incident rate per 100,000 of 34. We had a higher relative change in case counts this week than we'd had that week before reporting period. In North Andover, during that 2-week period, there was 11,049 tests completed. So to give you kind of an idea of that and kind of the amount that is, if you compare some of these other communities that are on this list, like Newburyport, which is a city, they only did 2,500 cases in that same time period. North Attleboro, only 2,737 cases. So we've really processed extreme amount of cases here in town due to Merrimack. Of those 11,000 cases, 167 of them were positive, with a 1.51% positivity rate over that 14-day period. And again, that positivity rate was higher than it was the 2-week period before that. Currently, we have a total cases through all of the pandemic of 978. We have active cases of 95, with 11 of those being Merrimack, North Andover cases. The college is actually closed now, so we shouldn't see as many cases coming through. I believe they're not coming back until the first week in February. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to our case count as that goes forward. We're seeing a lot of activity from tests that were done in the days leading up to Thanksgiving. So for instance, we had 18 positive cases that came through on Wednesday. So it seems that people got tested before they traveled or went to see family, et cetera. And so now we're seeing those cases come through. we're also seeing a lot of college students who are coming home and then testing positive. And what will actually happen is that those students will have their addresses changed. So our numbers will be slightly skewed. They'll revert back to the university they came from. So for instance, they came here from University of Maine, it will then be assigned to University of Maine, but we actually have to do a lot of the contact tracing on that. So we're continuing to work on that. We are starting to see some travel related positives coming in, and some of those are symptomatic and some are not symptomatic. One thing to remember is that there was a change in the state risk travel advisory this week, and the only state that is not under that travel advisory at this point is Hawaii. So if you travel to New Hampshire, Vermont, or Maine now for a vacation, not for work, you will need to be tested before you can return to the state. The only other news is that since our last meeting, the yellow classification has stuck for the 3-week period, and the town was allowed to move forward for phase 3, part 2.
Any
Melissa,
feedback, comments
Melissa,
from
could you?
members?
Yes, Melissa, could you? You know, we are obviously right on the New Hampshire border, and a lot of people do shopping or maybe had something sent to the store and need to go pick it up. How does that play into people going
So-
up to, or even Maine, or
Yeah, the travel restriction doesn't include grocery shopping. You are allowed to go grocery shopping or to church. But any other types of trips, you do need to have a test. So
even if this one, say for example, you are picking something up from Best Buy, you know,
Mhm.
something was sent to the store and you're picking it up, you have to go through that whole process.
right, the COVID travel order really, the specification, the exact exemption is for grocery shopping. So, you know, they really limited, and I'm just pulling open the list. So it allows transitory travel. So if you were traveling through to make a connection, that's okay. If you're commuting to work or school, that's fine. If you're a patient seeking or receiving medical treatment, so for instance, your primary care physician is in another state, that's fine. Military personnel and workers providing critical infrastructure services. And then things like grocery shopping, and also going to church. Those are really the items that they're allowing. Other than that, you are required to either do the quarantine or the 2-week or the test. So we do have a lot of employees who commute here from New Hampshire, so it comes up a lot, and they are allowed to do that, and that's not a problem.
Wow.
Melissa,
Mhm.
for the 11,000 approximate tests that we've had conducted, obviously that's a big spike compared to a community like Newburyport with its 2,500. So what's the actual breakdown of Merrimack tests versus the general community?
So we know Merrimack was doing about 4,600 tests a week.
Oh, okay.
Right. So if you add those together, right, that gets you up to about 9,000. So that puts us pretty much in line with other communities after that, around that 2,000 number. But it would
so-
make sense why our cases were higher, you know.
So with the exception of Merrimack kids having their, and maybe Merrimack staff also having their tests done on campus, where predominantly are North Andover people's tests coming back from? Are they going to urgent cares, to Lawrence General?
So a lot of the cases that we're seeing are coming out of the Lawrence mobile sites, the Lawrence General site, the Lawrence mobile sites. They are the fastest by far. So if you're getting tested at a private site, CVS, or your primary care physician, we're seeing about a 6-day period for test results to come back. I was talking to somebody today who was tested last Saturday and received their results Sunday. So but if you're going to a Stop the Spread site, the lines have been long since Thanksgiving. They've been longer than they were before, but the results are usually back in a 24 to 72 hour period, which really limits down your quarantine time.
And those spread sites are in Lawrence. Is that the one that's by Lawrence General Hospital?
So there's five or six of them in Lawrence. There's some in Methuen. The ones in Lawrence, there's a fixed one that's at Lawrence General, and then there's a mobile site that actually moves around. that I don't tell my secret to everyone, but is much faster. So that's the one that we usually go to at work. The staff usually goes to that one because it's fast. There's not usually as long a line. So, but that one travels, so you have to look up where it is every day.
Okay. Thank you.
And those are free, and we do encourage people to go and get tested.
Great. Anything on the horizon that you're hearing from the state in terms of dealing with a surge or further information or resources that we could be looking?
I mean, we're definitely all getting ready for a subsequent surge, and we're seeing the hospitals starting to ready for that as well. A lot of the calls that we're talking about are starting to talk about the vaccine, but we haven't had anything rolled out. Like, for instance, the questions are coming up if we should be purchasing specialized freezers, et cetera, but we haven't gotten real direction on that yet because we don't know which vaccine is going to come forward first. But they have told us to start thinking about how we would do rollouts, and we were lucky enough to do that large flu clinic, drive-through 8-lane flu clinic, which was great practice, right, for that. And so we've started to have those conversations. Other than that, the thing that we're all really looking at is what's going to happen with the CARES Act funding that expires December 31st. And everyone's hopeful that the federal level will see maybe some movement or action on that, whether it's an extension of the date or supplementary funding. And then the other thing that we're all looking at and waiting for is to see what's going to happen with unemployment.
Okay, see what comes in Santa's basket, huh?
Mhm.
Santa's bag.
Mhm.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll hear a motion to go into licensing, if we could.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Board of Selectmen, acting as licensing commissioners, move into licensing.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And if we could just have a roll call vote, please.
Laura Bates, aye.
Phil DiColagero, aye.
Rosemary Smedili, aye.
Richard Valencourt, aye.
Chris Nobley, aye. And we're in licensing.
Okay, thank you. We are now into licensing. We have two items on the agenda tonight. The first one is an application from Anthony and Lee. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. I'm Procero for a common victualler and entertainment license for Jet Nutrition, which is located close to Town Hall, 125 Main Street, North Andover. Do we have the prospective owners online, or are they with us this evening?
Yeah, we're here
Yes,
online as well.
Okay.
Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Thank you for coming by way of Zoom. Would you like to talk a little bit about your business so that we kind of get a sense of what type of services you offer? And so you're on 125 Main Street, which is next to, what would that be next to that we would all recognize?
Sure, we're right in the First and Main Marketplace, directly next to Boston Chowder is our location.
Okay.
And we're very excited to join the North Andover community. We're looking to bring an exciting new food option to town as well, to create a kind of a healthy, efficient meal option in that area. We provide gourmet meal replacement protein shakes and energy boosting teas. We have a couple of partner locations in New Hampshire that have done very well, and we're looking at bringing that to North Andover. There's definitely been an appetite to bring that to town for sure. Our shakes are all under 250 calories, and they're the highest quality ingredients with lots of vitamins and minerals in them as well. And our teas are packed with energy, including our thermogenic tea, which is green tea based. And we also infuse them with collagen products, as well as BCAAs and additional protein options as well. So we're very excited to bring this to the community.
It sounds very interesting. So it appears as though everything is in order. Do we have any questions or comments from the board?
Well, I think it's a great time to try to work on getting healthy.
Exactly.
You know, we're all stuck inside now. Let's do this. Will you have delivery of your product, or how are you managing that? By the way.
Yeah, we'll offer some curbside delivery as well. We are looking at exploring the option of doing delivery services. We're hoping to have the capability to do that as well, but we will definitely be doing curbside and an online app for ordering as well to use that transition for folks.
Great.
When do you plan on opening?
We're hoping to open mid-December, the first of the year at the very latest, but depending on approval process and construction, that's our timeline right now is looking like December 15th or so.
Well, good luck. That's pretty aggressive, but good luck.
Thanks. Luckily, the unit itself doesn't need too much work as far as construction goes. We're in pretty good shape there, so it's more just getting our equipment in that we need and plumbing.
Great.
Wonderful.
I don't know if anyone has told you about the North Andover Merchants Association, but you may want to look into becoming involved in that as well.
Yes, definitely. That's something that I know that our landlord has talked to us about, and we'll certainly be joining up on that. We're very excited to join that group.
Great. Sounds like you got a couple of kids in the background too.
We do. Yeah, we have a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old, and they're definitely restless from some remote learning today.
Right.
So.
Sounds like they have.
Either that or you're feeding them very healthy, and they're just very robust young kids. So
That's
that
true.
is good.
That's true. Yep. They like our kid shake option for sure. So.
Very good.
Well, Madam Chair, I'd motion that we accept the license application and extend with it its approval, hopefully its approval. Congratulations and strong welcome to the town of North Andover.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Roll call vote, please.
Laura Bates, aye.
Phil DiColigiero, aye.
Chris Nobley, aye.
Richard Valencourt, aye.
And Rosemary Smedili is aye, which is a unanimous vote. Congratulations, very exciting. And you know, it's kind of it's an interesting time to be opening, but I think it could be quite good because even though we're also distancing and probably not doing all the shopping and everything, it's probably a great time that you might need a little energy boost of some sort during the day, and that we get something to get you through the holiday season. So I think it's a great idea, very exciting. And as my other members said, congratulations and welcome to North Andover. If there's anything we can do to assist you, please let us know.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome. We appreciate it. We're looking forward to meeting everyone soon.
Okay, great. Did I
Thank you.
pronounce it right? Was that correct?
Yeah, it's for Chero. Yep.
Okay, very good.
Yes. Thank you.
All righty. So hold on one moment. So the next item on the agenda is a discussion. Give me a moment to switch over to that. On possible vote regarding the requirements to pay town taxes for license renewals. Madam Town Manager, would you like to brief us on this?
Sure, and I'm sure Laurie can help me as I go. And so as you know, at the last meeting in December, the Licensing Commission votes on the renewal of all of those licenses. As part of that process, the town treasurer usually creates a list for us of businesses that have outstanding taxes due to the town. In a typical year, if we have a business that owns any taxes, they have to be paid prior to the license being renewed. This year, due to COVID, a number of our license holders have not yet paid their past due taxes. Per the town bylaw, the Board of Selectmen has the authority not to revoke the license for non-payment. And so we wanted to begin that discussion tonight. So what would typically happen is that we don't even accept the application as it comes in. It would not come before you. So for tonight's action, what we wanted to have you do was discuss this and then make a recommendation or to vote to allow the license holders to submit their renewal applications when they have outstanding taxes due to the town. And then at your December meeting, you would actually vote to issue those licenses. So tonight, really all we're asking is for you to vote to allow those people to apply. And so we do have a short list, which was sent with you to you earlier today. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. just about almost 20 businesses that are not current at this time.
So,
So,
Town Manager, just a question. When it says PP, that means, I'm assuming personal property?
Yeah, so it turns out we had a exciting discovery over the last few days that in the past we were not requiring the personal property to be paid before we were issuing the license. I'm not really sure why, because those are actually technically real estate taxes, and so that won't happen going forward. So we do have several people who have a long time of arrearage when it comes to their personal property taxes, and as we get out of COVID and move back to normal times, we'll work with tax title on recouping those funds. But that will not happen moving forward.
Okay, so that answered my second question. Thank you.
but just so it's clear to the public, this is not a waiver of taxes. People do still have to pay their taxes. It's within a certain amount of time, and there's, of course, some penalties and fees for not paying on time, because I think some of the citizens would say, well, gee, that doesn't seem fair. I'm paying mine, but I think it's more to accommodate people during these very, very difficult times. But there are late fees associated with not paying the taxes. Is that correct?
That's correct. So 16%, it actually compounds daily, so it can really add up quickly, unfortunately. And we do not have, as a town, the capacity to waive those late fees. So all we're doing is actually allowing and then perhaps giving the license to entities that have unpaid taxes. Those taxes will still need to be paid.
Well, I think the good thing about that is every day there's better and better news about the vaccine. I mean, they're actually talking about maybe starting those really soon, so that you hope that this is something that maybe can tide them over till people start getting vaccinated, and maybe we get control of this virus, and businesses get, are up and running at full or near full capacity. So I think it's the right thing for us to do, and hopefully not too many people will need to take advantage of it, because that just means that they're probably struggling somewhat. But to have that opportunity to move forward and still keep the business going, keep their people employed, with great hopes of getting some relief soon with this virus. So I think it's the right thing to do.
Madam Town Manager, I was just curious. I know it's really a small amount of businesses and most of it's personal property. Do you have any concerns about our cash flow?
No, I think we'll see payment by the end of the year. Taxes and other revenues are in line and where they should typically be in the fiscal year. We reviewed them actually today. There's a few small things that are off, but we're kind of expected to be a little bit down, like meals tax. But taxes are running pretty much where they should be. So I think that we'll still recoup it. It'll just be a little bit later. And we certainly do not have a cash in hand problem. So.
And those back taxes that you were talking about, are those collecting interest as well? Is there some? Yeah, they are. Okay.
Yeah. So we actually had started doing more aggressive tax title right before coronavirus started. We brought in a private firm because we did have some long-term unpaid taxes. When coronavirus started and the eviction moratorium was placed, we made a policy decision to kind of hold off on that. Because it's not, timing is everything with these things. So once things normalize again, we'll continue with that process. We'd actually collected, I think, almost $200,000 in the period of time that before coronavirus started, after we hired the attorneys. So we'll continue that. But for the time being, you've put that on hold. But it does continue to accrue interest that unfortunately we can't do anything with. So.
Good. All right. Thank you. No, I think it's a good option. It gives businesses a little bit of leeway moving into the new year. And hopefully the best thing we can hope is that these businesses make it through this time period and turn the corner. So thank you.
Manager, this does require a vote. Is that,
Yes. That's,
Right.
okay?
so the motion,
So,
if you want me to read it, I can.
I've got it, no
Got it?
problem.
Okay.
Yep. Move that the Board of Selectmen acting as licensing commissioners allow business licensee holders to submit their renewal applications with outstanding taxes due to the town.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Chris, seconded by Phil. Any further discussion?
Um,
All those.
I'll just say,
Go ahead.
I agree with you. I think this is the right thing to do, especially during these times. I would be more comfortable if we were just supporting them for fiscal 21, or since the COVID outbreak is taken. But some of those businesses are very far back in accrue, so I think we definitely need to check out. And this is really the first time we've seen personal property taxes, as the town manager said, on our docket or on our list of taxes owed. So I think we definitely need to get, looking at those back taxes as soon as possible. This
Okay,
first.
thank you, Dick. Anybody else? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Roll call vote, please.
Laura Bates, aye.
Phil DiColigiero, aye.
Chris Nobley, aye.
Richard Valencourt, aye.
Rosemary Smedili, aye. That is a unanimous vote. I will now entertain a motion to move out of licensing.
Madam Chair, I'll move that we move out of licensing.
Chris
Motion made by
Nobley,
Dick,
second.
seconded by Chris. All those in favor say aye. Roll call vote, please.
Laura Bates, aye.
Phil DiColigiero, aye.
Chris Nobley, aye.
Richard Valencourt, aye.
Rosemary Smedili, aye. That's a unanimous vote. Mr. Chair, return the gavel.
Thank you very much. Okay, we just have one item under new business, and that's a vote to, approval of the minutes first. So we have the minutes from our open session on November 16th, 2020. Has everybody had time to review the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
If we're all good,
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that
the
we
minutes.
approve the minutes from November 16, 2020 as written.
Second.
Mr. Chair, Laura Bates, second.
Thank you.
Laura Bates, aye.
Phil DiColigiero, aye.
Rosemary Smedili, aye.
Richard Valencourt, aye.
And Chris Nobley, aye. 0 vote. Our minutes are accepted. And now we move on to our one item of new business, and that's our vote to accept the updated
Great. This is
Designer
something Laurie's been
selection
working on for a long
procedures.
time. Back in 2016, under the Municipal Reform Act,
Yep.
designer selection law was actually changed, and municipalities are required to have their own policy. Ours hadn't been updated since 2006, so we had never updated it based on that Municipal Reform Act language. So this policy is actually a model policy that the state has put out for municipalities. We did receive a question today about why we're not including any language about minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses like we are in Section 22 for projects that are funded by the Commonwealth. My understanding of the law is that there is not a mechanism for that to happen under the municipal policy, only under the state policy. It looks like, based on what we kind of found today, that the Commonwealth is working on creating a new policy or guidelines for municipalities to be able to give preference to women-owned or minority-owned businesses, but unfortunately the metric or the mechanism doesn't exist yet. We have reached out to the Inspector General's office to see if we're missing something, but I couldn't find anything. And I did review about a dozen other communities' policies today just to see if any of them had figured out a way to do it. Unfortunately, the law is pretty prescriptive in how we do the designer selection. So while we are allowed to form our own policy, there really isn't a lot of leeway in it. And there is not a way to give extra value to minority or women-owned businesses The state actually did it under an executive order, but the executive order applies only to state funded projects, not municipally funded projects, unfortunately. So we'll continue to dig that out. But we think it's important for us to have a new policy that reflects the 2016 updates and thresholds. So thank you to Laurie for working on this and keeping it on the agenda. So.
Well, and I think just if you look at this meeting and the last meeting, we have new businesses coming in town. We have development that's on the horizon in many different ways. Lots of projects. So I think trying to be progressive with this is really important. So I appreciate the effort on this, Laurie. Any other thoughts or comments on this before?
I just had a question. So just for my own information, how does the process work as far as picking a designer? Melissa, you vet them out and then present your choice to the board?
No, so typically what happens is they go through the RFQ process, and then they're evaluated through a criteria that's set out in that RFQ. And then as the chief procurement officer, the town manager makes the decision.
The decision. And then does the state give you guidelines as far as qualifications for certain projects, or like who you should be hiring to
So Laurie, feel free to jump in if you want to, because you do this much more than I do now, but typically they really don't. On construction contracts, it's a lot different because we're using DCAM, and so there's more stringent criteria. But for design selection, doing design, it's typically, architects, and they don't really have any laid out, there's criteria to go by, but there's not really any stringent, any kind of criteria. Laurie, anything?
Yeah. No, they'll give examples in certain scenarios, with different types of projects you're looking at, but it's really up to us to craft our criteria, our minimum requirements, and our evaluation.
and like their experience and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, there's pretty much standard ones that we use, references or experience, but there's not really any kind of like model RFQ
Model,
that they give you.
It'd be helpful if there was.
Yeah. But I mean, we try not to recreate the wheel because other towns have done it. So,
Right. Yeah. No,
We don't
thank
do
you.
that many
Appreciate it.
huge capital projects that we need to go through the RFQ process. But for our bigger buildings or larger construction projects, we do.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or input? If not, I'll hear a motion to accept the updated designer select procedures.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the Board of Selectmen adopt the designer selection procedures as presented.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, second.
Thank you, Laura, for seconding that. And a voice roll, please.
Laura Bates, aye.
Phil DiColigiero, aye.
Rosemary Smith Ely, aye.
Richard Valencourt, aye.
Chris Nobley, aye. And 5-0 unanimous vote to accept the designer selection procedure. So thanks again. We'll look for more on that. Consent items, I don't see that we've got anything on the agenda, nor old business, if I'm correct in that, which brings us to town manager's report.
Thank you. So I have a few things. A couple of just quick plugs for things that are happening around town. So we have our holidays lights map that Sarah Brush put together for us. We currently have 30 homes on it, and it's had 1,600 views as of today. So it's pretty exciting. You can enter your address where you have Christmas lights. It gets populated onto a GIS layer on our map, and you can look it up and drive around and find all your Christmas lights. Our downtown revitalization meeting is on Wednesday at 6 o'clock. I'm hoping that people will log on. It's in Zoom, so it's easy. You can do it in your pajamas. but you can come back and tell us a little bit about what you'd like to see in downtown. The Stuff a Cruiser event is happening again this Saturday. I believe it's from 9 to 12. And the fire department is still doing Toys for Tots at the fire station. You can bring it right by. It's in the front lobby. We on Wednesday are meeting to appoint or confirm my appointment of our new IT director, John Highland. And so I'm looking forward to that. And we have added a second item to the agenda on Wednesday that I wanted to do a quick prep for now. Unfortunately, it's not on the agenda, so we can't have a discussion on it, but I did want to give you all a heads up. So today, Lynn and I met with the Department of Revenue because we were having some difficulty in setting our tax rate. And basically that was because they were holding up the setting due to the Stevens Estate Enterprise Fund. So there has been some changes this year at DOR, and they have said they won't let us do two things. They will not let us use our retained earnings to offset our deficit, which obviously we're going to have, right? We're in a tough year this year with coronavirus and being unable to hold our regular events. So our deficit will be much higher than it typically is. Last year, I think we had about a $16,000 loss. This year, it was looking to be much more significant. And we had come up with a plan to offset it that involved using retained earnings, extrapolating out what we anticipated in revenue for the rest of the year based on the booking report, and a use, if necessary, of a reappropriation of capital expenditure that had not been used or overflow for the Stevens estate. And so there's about $170,000 there that we could have put back into the estate. Unfortunately, they have said that they will not let us do that. And they also will not allow us any longer, after 19 years, to use deposits made on events in the first fiscal year. So basically what they're saying is that if we have an event that is going to be in fiscal year 22 and we take deposits in fiscal year 21, we are not allowed to use that cash flow in fiscal year 21 any longer. This is a change. This has literally been 2 decades of the enterprise fund being accounted for in that way. And for that change to happen this year is rather debilitating because, one, we have less income due to coronavirus, but two, we also have a gap year, right? So last year we were allowed in fiscal year 20 to use the deposits in that way. Now in fiscal year 21, we're being told we can't, but we can use in the fund fiscal year 22, which leaves us with basically a double deficit in fiscal year 21, which is problematic. So they brought forward 3 solutions that I would like us to discuss at our meeting on Wednesday, and then subsequently after that, perhaps also call a meeting for Monday when we would vote. That way you would all have time to absorb this, and I can get you more information. And this is new to me and Lynn as well, because this happened around 2 o'clock. So they gave us 3 options. One is to call a town meeting and change our appropriation. The second one is to raise it on the recap. So raising on the recap is less than ideal. Basically what that would mean is that taxpayers would be paying to fund the Stevens estate this year. We would not know how much we would need, so we would have to raise extra, around $300,000. It would cost about the average single family home about $30. But the biggest problem with that is that we don't have the capacity, right? We have about $128,000 in capacity, which means we'd have to make some other cuts somewhere, whether to the overlay or excess revenues or somewhere. And so that really isn't a solution that works for us. The third solution, and the one that I think is the most appealing, is to make a stabilization transfer. So under the COVID Emergency Act legislation that was passed earlier in the year, Board of Selectmen have the authority to make stabilization transfers with a 2/3 vote. If you remember correctly, typically stabilization transfers have to be done at town meeting. There was emergency legislation that allows you to do them. What we would do is we would make a motion or a vote to transfer $300,000 from stabilization to the Stevens Estate Enterprise Fund as a revenue source. It would require a 2/3 vote of the Board of Selectmen. Once we did that, we would hold that money. We wouldn't make an immediate transfer. And at the end of the year, around May, we would see what we actually needed and we would make any relevant transfers. We would then put a town meeting article on under a special town meeting at the May town meeting, and we would appropriate from retained earnings in the Stevens estate and pay back the stabilization fund. So it's basically like a bridge loan. It's a complicated process, but it's a process that would work to get us through this period. We can talk more about this on Wednesday. We can make policy decisions about whether or not we continue to operate the Stevens estate as we currently are, or if we make other options. And I'll think more about that over the next few days and bring that Wednesday as well. And then again, Monday, depending on how we want to move forward. We don't have a lot of time because obviously we need to set the tax rate because we need to get the bills printed, which is why I'm bringing this forward to you right now. Asked to have it on the agenda on Wednesday, and then I'm asking you to have another meeting on Monday to actually make a determination. And I know that's a lot to absorb, and I know it's hard that we can't deliberate about it right now. It's been a lot for me to absorb today too, but I wanted to make sure that knowing it's pressing and knowing that it's on my mind, that you all know about it right away.
Melissa, so of course, as a board of selectmen, we don't normally meet on Wednesdays, and so I have a work commitment that prevents me
Understood.
from being at this meeting, unfortunately. And so I was hoping, though, just for greater clarification on the options, all of those options, the third option, I should say, the stabilization option, that doesn't lead to a result that allows us to recoup that money, correct?
So we could recoup the money by putting an article on town meeting. That's how we would recoup the money back to stabilization. So basically, we have
Where would that recouping come from, though?
So we have $90,000 in retained earnings.
Mm-hmm.
We have another $80,000 in revenue that we anticipate we may get this year, hopefully. And then we have $170,000 that we can take from those capital accounts and appropriate to the stabilization account. So we actually don't anticipate that we'll spend the $360,000 that was appropriated at town meeting. We actually think we'll spend $212,000. That's what we've extrapolated our budget out to based on the booking report. We have $50,000 in revenue right now. So in actuality, we probably need close to $162,000, not $300,000. Unfortunately, DOR is going to require us to appropriate the whole $300,000. So we would have plenty of funds between the retained earnings and those capital accounts and any additional revenue that came in order to offset the stabilization account at May.
So we would recoup the funds.
We would recoup the
But
funds.
we would essentially exhaust. I mean, we would deplete every other.
We would
account
deplete.
associated with the Stevens estate.
We would deplete all of the Stevens estate's savings accounts. That being said, I did finalize the draft of the RFP today and get it over to Joe Pellich and Jim LaFond and Dave Brown for review.
Thank you for.
No problem. So hopefully, we're moving in a positive direction. I don't know a single wedding event planning venue that's, in the black right now, unfortunately. But we're doing the best that we can. So.
Oh, and I appreciate that. Just for the public's reference, so Jim LaFond was the chairman of the Long-Term Advisory Committee. Joe Pellich was a member of the Long-Term Advisory Committee, and Dave Brown is the chairman of the permanent Stevens Estate Advisory Board. So it's great to see people that were invested in the process and invested in that estate having an opportunity to digest and offer feedback. But this is a good reminder. I know that, like you just said, no wedding venue right now, not that we could predict a pandemic, but no wedding venue is currently operating with any type of financial success. But then again, it's also why wedding venues are not typically owned by the government. So isn't that just great? So thank you for your work. I'm sorry that in the light of a pandemic where we have to juggle our kids not being educated to the standards that parents would like because of things outside of our control as a community, you have to spend your time making sure we can actually collect the tax revenue to fund our community being held up because of a wedding venue. Thank you for your hard work, Melissa, and to the staff, because I know that you did not pick that, but well, hopefully as you're working hard, you remember that it's nostalgic and very important to the community in which it's located.
Madam Town Manager, my only question or comment on this, because I know we're not supposed to deliberate, but is it just seems like it came up pretty quick, and which is unfortunate considering the COVID, the impact on the entire wedding community, whether it's venues or bridal attire, flowers, invitations. I mean, that whole industry has been really hurt very badly. It's just seemed like this is awful quick for a time when it's just difficult to be involved in government of any sort. I mean, we're dealing with a lot, and it's unfortunate too, with North Andover coming off of a year of Columbia Gas and other things. It's just, I'm disappointed that maybe it would have been better to have eased into this somehow, and maybe this is something that we should ask that our representatives at least listen in on this conversation on Wednesday.
I can tell you, Laurie can tell you, because she heard me through the walls, that I shared much of the sentiment with DOR today in a very excited voice as well. Obviously,
My is not too excited, but my resolve is. But yeah,
I was pretty
that's
excited.
when I'm off the TV. Is my voice excited?
It takes
Yeah.
quite a lot to get me worked up, but I was pretty worked up. So this didn't come to light until after we set the tax rate, right? And we submitted it. And typically we put plans like this forward in the past and had no issues. So this certainly was a shock, I think, to the finance director and myself, because we feel that we have a rather steady funding plan in place. However, we're going to have to roll with these changes, but I made quite the same arguments today to DOR.
It's just wrong. It's just wrong. You don't do this to any business, even in good times, whether it be a government business or private sector business. It's just not right. And it's really troubling that they could not have at least said, this is going to come into effect next year. You better start planning.
Mm-hmm.
But
what was the
it is what
rationale
it is.
for it, Melissa?
So they said that if we had been showing the deficit after the tax rate was set, so for instance, if we had showing revenues where they should be up till now, and then say COVID hit, kind of like last year, right? Last year they let us spend into deficit because COVID hit after we set the tax rate. So there was not an indication that we were not going to have enough funds. They're saying that because there is an indication that we're not going to have enough funds now, that they feel that they cannot set the tax rate within the statute, one, and two, because of the kind of uneasiness or uncertainty around wedding venues, they don't want us to use the deposit money anymore because they're saying basically that we'd have to give it back. And I did explain to them that has not happened so far. We've actually only refunded one wedding. If you all remember correctly, that was the one with the soldier who was leaving and couldn't reschedule. Other than that, we have firm contract language that states that deposits are not returned and everything else has been rescheduled. But unfortunately, that was not an argument that I won today. So we're continuing on and trying to come up with the most creative solutions that we can.
I mean, ultimately, that would sound to me as frustrating as it is for you, that's DOR doing its job of protecting the taxpayers, because of course, in the event that people did end up backing out, we would be on the hook. And so DOR is absolutely doing its job. The issue, of course, has always been this particular facility and how it's operated and how structurally, I mean, this isn't a secret. Anybody with a newspaper access to Google would be able to see that this is something that we have been talking about for years and years and years. And so, I mean, kudos to DOR actually for protecting the North Andover taxpayers. The unfortunate thing is the result is if we want to continue to keep it open and operating, even in this climate, that now means we have to turn, surprise, surprise, to the taxpayers to keep it funded and subsidize it. So, great.
Even if so, we can talk about it more Wednesday.
Yeah.
But I'll Phil, if I know you can't be there, Phil, I'm happy to share my documents.
I'll find a way. I'll be out like in a parking lot on my iPad. Maybe we can find a way to get in there, but unlikely.
And then is everyone available Monday at 7 to have a subsequent meeting to take a vote? I know this is a lot to absorb, and I want to make sure that everyone has adequate time to make decisions.
So is that
Yeah.
the meeting on Monday, is that a short meeting? Is it just for the vote, or is it a?
The meeting on
regular-
Monday, yeah, I don't anticipate many things that would need to be on the agenda, so it would be a short meeting.
So in essence, it's 3 short meetings, which is fine. I mean, today and Wednesday, and then again on Monday. Okay.
Yeah, we were going to put it on for Wednesday, but we didn't think you'd have enough time to really digest all of the facts. So
Appreciate it.
Okay.
that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
there's always twists and turns. So I appreciate, all that you and everybody at Town Hall is doing. And, we'll work our way through it.
We will. We have a good team.
With that, we do. Select board comments. Anybody have updates or things you want to share?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just really quick. So the wreaths are pretty much all up except for one more. It was a huge project, great work from DPW, and it was tough year because a lot of people wanted them. The notice came in their mailbox, and I think they all filled it out, and we just got bombarded. Over 100 wreaths are up. Police and fire also are allowing us to use, and the library, their location. But the most important thing that I want to mention to everybody, that for those who did not make it, and I'm really sorry that we were just overwhelmed and it was instantaneous. I think people were just, they're home, so they're going to the mailbox and then they're opening their mail, versus prior to people working from their home, they would go to the mailbox, put the mail in the pile to be gotten to in a few days to pay their bills. But I think people were acting quite quickly. So for those of you who have not seen your wreath up, we will be sending your check back. They have not been cashed. They will be sent back to you. I'm just giving us a little bit of time to get those back to you. But our apologies that the response was fantastic, which is great. But you will be, your checks will be sent back if you were not able to get into the program this year. And that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else have additions?
Mr. Chair, I have a couple things. And Rosemary, the wreaths look great as they always do.
Thank you. We've got a great DPW. We do. They do a great job. And I believe they're working on the lights for the tree at the common as well. So we're looking forward to that too.
Great.
But thank you.
So I just had the Merchants Association. They started their bingo this weekend, and we started getting our stamps from all the local businesses to support them. So I thought that was a fun activity that they did this year to support and hopefully get some money back into our businesses so we can support them. And then the other thing is the school committee has put together their facilities master plan 2 committee, and Holly Lynch is the chair, and they're looking for members of the community to be on that committee. So you can reach out to probably Holly or Jim Mealy if there's anybody that has interest in that as we move forward into budget season, and hopefully we'll see the schools and their plan for some of the expansions that way. And that's it.
Great. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, myself and Selectman Spadili, she and I did get to sit down with Andrew Shapiro, Gene Enright, Lori Burzloff, as well as some of the local business owners. I think Jim Dietz might have actually been the only local business owner that was on the call to discuss some follow-up support that we can provide to the business community, especially given the impact COVID had on whether they could be open and operating, and yet the expectation that they still have to pay certain licensing fees in general, but also just as a way to provide general support to all businesses, regardless of whether they have licensing fees attached to their operation. And so that was a really positive conversation that we got to have. I don't know, Melissa, if you anticipate us having that discussion closer to Christmas, or whether that's something you think, we as a select board will be having sooner.
I mean, I think it'd be good to have it as soon as we can, because I think that it's timely right now, and I think the help is needed. So I'll check back base with Andrew and Jean, see what they anticipated for a timeline.
We appreciate that and the feedback. that they gave to us to help steer us as policymakers in a direction that was a little bit more productive and beneficial overall to the town and the businesses. And then the more personal note was that, I've enjoyed my time on the Board of Selectmen, and, since our last meeting, I did decide with my family that I was not going to be seeking re-election. And so I know that a lot of times the holiday season is an important time for people when they think about jumping into this role. And so certainly they have plenty of extra time now sitting at home, not running out to meetings and doing extra Christmas parties that perhaps they can reflect a little bit more on whether they want to join this pretty dynamic and hardworking group of people who are trying to move our town forward. So thank you for the 5.5 years and change so far and 120 days left, as Selectman Nobley pointed out prior to this meeting. So, woo.
Well, Phil, we will get the maximum out of you with those last 120 days, as if we haven't so far as a community. So, while we will miss you, we know you're not going far, and we know your commitment to the community. So, thank you very much. And we'll say this again over the next 120 days. But you're right. What a great opportunity, and it's wonderful that you stepped up 6 years ago, and it'll be a new horizon for somebody else, and you get to tell them, right?
It's fun.
Yeah.
Pandemic aside, it's fun.
So just to kind of pull it all together, so folks, if you're keeping your scorecard, so we have our meeting on Wednesday. We'll have a meeting the following Monday, the 7th, and then our regularly scheduled meeting will be the 14th. I do hope people put that in their schedule, because the 14th will be, we couldn't let Phil depart without having a tri-board meeting, the select board, the school committee, and the finance committee. And we're all going to virtually, but it's an opportunity for us to work collaboratively on the 2022 budget, and also to, as Laura noted earlier, start taking a look collectively at the facilities master plan too, a lot of which revolves around the schools. So we really have a great opportunity to pull together and discuss that. So I know that's 4 meetings in a row for folks, but we do hope that you tune in, because there's some important conversation that's going to be coming our way in 2 weeks. So if there's nothing further, I will hear a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
Second,
Thank you, Rosemary. And roll call, please.
Laura Bates, aye.
Phil DiColigiero, aye.
Rosemary Smedili, aye.
Richard Valencourt, aye.
Chris Nobley, aye. And we'll see you all on Wednesday. Take care. Night
Thanks,
now.
guys.
Right, thank you.
Night,
Good night, everyone.
Right.
Night.